But if the content of the meal is not actually what your body's asking for, can you make a substitution? So I feel like knowledge is the first step,
Yeah.
and then inquiry would be the second.
Yeah. So just bringing it up to the surface of your conscious awareness so that more and more, whatever you're doing on purpose. And if you are giving yourself, the bag of chips or whatever, that okay, I'm going to go for this salt bomb. It's not objectively really good for me, but I'm going to give what it actually reminds me of is when I used to smoke, I smoked cigarettes for a long, long time. And I finally quit. It was 2015, 2014. And for years, I heard, we all know the health risks. We all know why we shouldn't smoke. But that didn't matter to me. I don't know why. That was just like, well, whatever, who cares? The thing that actually made me stop smoking and get ready to, or get to the point where I was actually willing to let it go was one night I was living in Seattle. It was rainy in the middle of November. I lived in a non-smoking building that had then become a non-smoking property. I never smoked in my apartment anyway. I'd always go outside. So now I had to go out to the sidewalk. Like I couldn't smoke outside my door anymore. So it's raining out. I put on my boots, put on my coat, get my umbrella, and I go out and stand on the street corner at 11 o'clock at night in the pouring rain, smoking a cigarette. And I thought, what the hell am I doing? If a friend called me right now and said, hey, do you want to go stand outside in the rain and eat a sandwich? I would say you're out of your mind. What are you smoking? Like you're crazy. No, of course I don't. So why am I out here with a cigarette doing it? That was the last cigarette I ever smoked
Nice.
because I finally had a connection to something that was meaningful for me, which was the logic and the truth of it. And I thought there's absolutely no truth here. My body
Yeah.
clearly doesn't need this. No, yeah, I've created an addiction, so it feels like it does. But just that moment of asking myself mindfully as I'm putting the cigarette up to my, like, what am I doing standing out here in the rain at 11 o'clock at night? Why? And that changed everything.
Yeah. And before we spoke, we also were talking about how people can access this um, observation of their habits.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, it's so funny because I think it always comes back to the why. Eventually, we're always going to come back to the why. And one of my favorite tricks, and so this is what I would offer to anybody who wants to make changes or is ready to make change, and perhaps they don't know how, or maybe they're even midstream and feeling like, oh God, I thought I was strong enough to do it, but now I'm losing my resolve. So here's one of my favorite prompts for inner work and that inquiry that is so crucial. When the craving or the desire arises to go into pattern or pick up something and consume, what I started to ask myself or say to myself was, you can do it if you want to, you just have to tell me why. And that would immediately short circuit the unconscious desire. So I could still smoke if I wanted to, but now I was doing it like, oh, this is a cigarette and I'm in. So, first of all, it just brings the behavior or the pattern into the light because now I have to justify to myself the why. And then so I would say, okay, you can do whatever you want. You have to tell me why. And then I would do my inner prompts, either journaling or just inner dialogue. And the why would almost always be I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling nervous, or I want to relax, or I want to numb out, or I want to feel, less intense, or whatever the thing was. So once I had the impetus for that choice, then I could say, oh, okay, you just want some peace and quiet, or you just want some solitude. We can do that. We don't need to get obliterated to do that. And so I would find a way to give myself what I wanted in a way that was deliberate, on purpose, and conscious, healthier, a better choice, a newer choice, a different choice. And that for me has been one that I use all of the time. When I have an unconscious urge to do something, sometimes it's just out of curiosity, like, well, you can do that, but why? And sometimes it's out of the desire to sort of modify a behavior or a choice. Regardless of what the reason is, it's fascinating if we can give ourselves that moment, the gap between impetus and response. That's where the power lies in the gap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the more that we mindfully investigate the gap, the bigger it gets, the bigger it gets, the bigger it gets. And so now it's in impetus and response is like a million miles away. So no longer do I feel powerless. I can go, oh yeah, I remember that. I used to do that all the time. Yep. totally know what's going to happen, know what the outcome's going to be. Yep, it's still going to feel crappy. Nope, still not going to feel good. And I can sort of laugh it off. But in the beginning, when impetus and response are almost immediate, or we're not even aware, it's just mindless eating. It's a really, really powerful way to separate and find ourselves in the middle, in that place of power, to give ourselves the gift of choosing it on purpose.
Yeah. And I would say that is a very solid example of health sovereignty,
Mm,
because no longer are you being run by unconscious programs or marketing ploys or chemicals, even.
yeah.
You are taking a very clear look at what are my behaviors and actions and what are the influences on those.
Yeah. And who told me that this was a good idea? And when did I decide to start choosing it? If you want to go to that level and get really high level, you can. And to kind of link it to what we were talking about food science and the billions of dollars that are spent every year to try to hook humans into consumption, when you have that knowledge, coupled with the fact that the choice has been predominantly unconscious, it shows you that you are being it's not the body that they are targeting, it's the mind. Because if the mind is addicted, it will override the body every single time.
Yeah.
Because to your
Yeah. And
point,
this,
it's loud, right? The need and the I need this, I need this, I need this is so loud. It's the screaming kid in the grocery aisle. I want it. And we just
yeah,
go, hey, fine. If you'll shut up, I'll give it to you.
because it was built for survival and it needs to be loud if it's about survival. But in our modern world, most of us are not worried about survival.
Yeah. But they can create a survival response by giving the mind something that it can get hooked on. So the mind now thinks that it's about survival.